Well, good afternoon and good morning, depending on where you are. Welcome to our next Angel Tree Module webinar. My name is Jeff Marquis, and hopefully many of you were with me earlier on this week on Tuesday as we walked through the campaign settings. And so here, as we dive in, you're going to start to see elements as it relates to applicant processing, right? So everything we're talking about today is going to be centered on applicant processing, how the applicant applies, the various methods of intake that you can follow. We'll touch on campaign settings as needed so that we're able to see how the two elements relate. But by all means, you're going to want to pay close attention. Please go ahead and familiarize yourself with the GoToWebinar system if you haven't done so. There's a spot in there for you to submit questions, have a little chat message. We've got our DPI team here that's going to be able to answer some questions for you. Similar to yesterday, we're kind of going to table most questions until the very end. We've got a lot of information to cover, and so we'll be able to address specific questions at the very end. Our webinar is scheduled to go for 1 hour, and we're going to make every effort to try to hit that mark. We were a little over yesterday as we kind of dove into some questions. But we are going to share a couple things in the chat thread and the comment thread with you. The first of which is going to be where you can go to reach out to for additional support, right? You are able to reach directly out to Data Paradigm if you have any questions about the Angel Tree module, and that is support@tsam.org. Again, support@tsam.org. Additionally, if you have team members or maybe other individuals that you want to be able to watch this after the fact, you're going to be able to go back into this. These videos will be posted on our TSAMM library. The one from Tuesday, if you weren't able to make it for one reason or another, that should be posted by the end of day tomorrow. We're going to make every effort to get those videos posted before the next training is due to take place. So you'll be able to review and refer back to those items and those elements. And so again, today we are focusing on the applicant processing, the applicants, where they go to apply, the manner in which you can do intake and how that touches back into your campaign settings, as well as some tips you can get all the way up to the admin approved status. That is the final status that an applicant goes into before they hit on to be distributed. You're going to see some of our new features here. I will say that I'm not going to go too deep into each one of those features per se. We actually have a specific new features webinar, which is a week from Tuesday. It's 3 webinars from today. That if you were only going to attend one, maybe you're an Angel Tree user that's been using it for the past 7, 8, 10 years of its existence, and maybe you feel really solid. Well, that's going to be a key one for you to touch and to attend, because we're going to touch on all the new features that rolled out in this year. Just a reminder, we are in our testing environment, and so if you see a little different things here and there, lower numbers, things like that, this is where we're doing our webinar today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I think we've given a chance for most people to hop on if they were going to be able to join us today. But we're going to first talk about the manners of intake, right? How can we process an application? And I would say that there's 2 methods, but one of those kind of have 2 approaches. The first of which is online. If I'm going to go online and register, this is when you are publishing saangeltree.org. That site looks like this, saangeltree.org. They will come here to be able to sign up. It's mobilely responsive. They can use their phone. When they request documents, they can go ahead and simply click and use the camera on their phone. It's really simple. And what they're going to do, and this is in the event that any applicant reaches out to you for maybe some questions about the system, things that they want to get clarity on. I want to walk through this just so you can see how they access. One thing that's also really helpful that we often forget is that they are able to come back, the applicant's able to come back to the Angel Tree system and be able to see information about their distribution appointment. You're able to go on and confirm if you're using the barcodes to sign them in. All of these things are going to be available if they simply just come and re-access the system with the email address and information that they utilized. So let's come here first, and when they get to the bottom, they're going to be asked a few questions. The first of which, have you started an application? If I say yes, it's going to prompt them to enter the email address that they used to access the system. In this event, we'll say no. Then they're going to say, do you have an invitation code? We're going to talk on that here just in a few minutes, but this is a specific, unique code that would have been given to the individual, and this code will allow them to bypass some of the restrictions that you've put into place. Lastly here, if I say no, I don't have an invitation code, it's simply going to ask them to put in a zip code. I'll put in the zip code of where I live, and it will bring me to a page where I can enter my email address. If they entered an email address and maybe the intake site isn't open to applications, or perhaps they simply live in an area in which the SA Angel Tree online system isn't available to them, they will receive information as such that they'll want to reach out to the local Salvation Army because either you're not accepting applications or that the applications are full, depending on the settings in the system. In this case, I'm simply going to put in an email address. It's going to want them to put in a formal email address, and we'll click next. At this point, the system is going to email them what's called a one-time password. It's something that I'm sure many of you guys have used before. They're going to go to the email address that they used, because this is both going to verify that they have access to this email address, right? Because we're going to be using this to communicate. But also, this is kind of how they're going to access the system moving forward. If they want to come back and be able to see the information, see their distribution appointment, other elements, they'll come here. They'll type in their verification code and move forward. At this point, the system is going to enter information, is going to have them enter information based on your settings for your online application. I'm going to highlight here just for a quick moment that your in-person intake versus your online intake is configured independently. So again, if a question appears here as optional, like race or household type, that is simply because we have said that this field is optional, and we as in the location. Some data points are required, like first name, last name. So I'm going to go ahead, put in my name, put in my birth date. I'll enter in my gender, and I'll start to work my way through. For the sake of time, I'm going to bypass many of these optional fields just as we continue through. I'll say I live at 123 Main Street in Dallas. If you ask for the county will automatically be driven by the zip code in question. So in this case, zip code 75701 is County of Smith County. And I'll come here and I'll enter in Texas, because that's where I'm based. My phone number is optional. I'm going to progress. This next page that we're going to get to is, this is the second time we've used this. This rolled out last year. You may recall a few years ago, you entered in your non-angels and then your angels, and it created some confusion. So if I come here and I type in a household member, if I type in my wife, and I will not use her real birthday, she'll also be born in 1990. It's going to simply say, okay, you're not eligible for Angel Tree. Here is your data points that we will capture. What's the relationship, spouse, race, all of these. We've set those fields to be optional. I'll save. And now I have one individual in the category of a household member not receiving angel gifts. Now I go to enter another child, and we'll put in my son. In this case, we're going to say he was born in 2016. When I click save, the system is going to prompt me that says that Cademan is eligible to receive angels, eligible to be an angel and receive gifts. Do you want to register Cademan for Angel Tree? And at this point, we give them the option. We're not forcing them because maybe their kids are technically within the age range, but maybe they're using another organization for their older kids, or maybe they just don't want to register all of them, but they will have the option whether to register them or not. I'll say, yes, I want to register Cademan. And you can see how we now have additional options. One thing I want to highlight that, again, also rolled out last year, and this is driven from Commissioners Conference, is the gender field here is optional and it's not configurable. We only can select male or female. So if I say that he needs a blanket and his wish is for a toy car, we'll go through, select my clothing type, my coat size, oh, apologies, and my shoe size, right? I'll go ahead and I'll put this information in. And when I go, I'm going to go ahead and click Save. If I don't answer the gender question, they are going to say, it appears you skipped the gender question. Was this intentional? And if they say yes, this is intentional, then their gender is going to be set as I prefer not to respond. I'm going to say, go ahead and say no, and I'll go ahead and enter and save that gender. If you have better questions or about the policy change on that, again, that was driven from Commissioners Conference, so you'll want to reach out to your local divisional headquarters to be able to get better understanding on that. Those changes came down from that organization. And as I build this out, no matter how many angels, they will be placed in one of two categories: household members not registered to receive gifts, and household members that are going to receive gifts this year. When they're done, they're going to click Next. What this past step did is it prevented the situation in which we're going to have duplicate individuals. The one thing I will say, as you're reviewing the applicant, the person filling out the application can still enter themselves as an applicant. So you want to go ahead and review that to confirm. We have a confirmation email kind of all the information that they've put into place, their household members who are angels and non-angels, all this information with a quick link. If they say, oh, I forgot to add an angel, they can go ahead and click edit. It'll bring them back to that step. At this point, we'll present the disclaimer and consent. This disclaimer and consent is slightly different across different territories. So what we're seeing here is the Southern Territories version. If you are from the Central, West, or East, and you're saying, well, that language doesn't line up, well, that is why. It does have different components there. They're going to agree to the use of an electronic signature, and then they're going to use their mouse or their finger to simply apply that signature. That's their consent. And then they are going to be prompted to submit documentation. In our configurations, we said, remember, if you were with us on Tuesday, you'll remember that we put this information in as it relates to proof of residency. We want to see a lease agreement or a utility bill or a printout from the security office. Again, this language that gets presented here is exactly what you have entered in your campaign settings. Same thing with birth certificate. So I'm going to go ahead and simply grab a lease agreement. So I'll grab my standard lease agreement. It'll automatically upload. I'm going to upload a birth certificate as well, right? And at this point, I'm done. If I had 2 angels or 3 angels, the system will be looking for multiple birth certificates. I'll click continue. We'll have a confirmation page as it relates to the documents I've uploaded, and eventually I'll click submit. We'll give them a quick warning that says, hey, just make sure your documents are correct, because that's really the biggest issue that we see often when it comes in this process is them not submitting the correct documents. They'll click submit. They will receive a confirmation email. All right. That's the only time I'm going to walk through that process, okay? That's the only time, because whether we're doing it in person or a special care, the process is largely identical. Right? So so we're not gonna go through that again. That person that we just signed up will appear in our applicant records, right? As we go through, here it is right here. Jeff Marquis applied and is currently in a pending status. Now, before we start to talk about some of the new things you're seeing on this page, let's talk about the in-person intake. If you do in-person intake, you can do that in one of 2 ways. One is which they simply just walk in off the streets. If they're walking in off the street, no appointment or anything, I'll come here and simply click New Applicant. When I click the New Applicant, I'll select the type of intake I want to do, family applicant intake or special care applicant intake. So we'll say family applicant. And remember, because we have multiple intake sites, I can select which one. We had a question come in, I think it was either yesterday or this morning, as it relates to they have 6 different intake sites, but those intake sites share zip codes. Well, they do in-person intake. So those zip codes that we configure in our campaign settings don't matter. When you do in-person intake, it's incumbent upon the person doing the registration to select the correct intake site for where they are. In this case, we'll say the Christmas warehouse. We'll walk through. This step is unique to the in-person intake. So if I want to look for a past individual, I can go ahead and look up John Smith, which is obviously a very common name. And it's going to say, hey, John Smith registered for the Tyler Corps. Here's their addresses, their phone numbers. They had 1 angel. And these are just within our existing campaign. There were 2 other instances across the entire Texas division, not to mention 13 across other divisions across the entire platform. If you want to carry those individuals forward, you can. You can select this angel's icon here, which brings up the name and age of who that was. So if they're sitting across from you and you have a John Smith, you say, hey, is your son named Billy and was he 5? Or is he 10 years old? You can go ahead and select that individual. If I do so, I simply click this icon here to the right, and it will carry forward that information and pre-populate the information that is available. That's if you do an online intake. If you do a new applicant, you just start from scratch like we did on the online intake. The other way that we are able to handle in-person appointments is to utilize an appointment requester. This is where you want to do in-person intakes, but you don't want a line out the door starting at 5 a.m. for registration that starts at 10. So you have people standing hours and hours ahead of time. In that case, you can get this URL, this website, either from your appointments intake page or in your campaign when you do on your intake page as well. I'll simply click this here, which is going to bring me to a separate section. And the same way we enter the zip code for the online registration, we're going to enter our zip code here. We'll type in 75701 because that's where we're doing our appointments. And because we are accepting appointment requests, we're going to go ahead and enter our information. And we're going to have Steve Johnson, whose email address is steve@email.com. And here's my phone number. Oh, apologies. At this point, these are the only data points that you collect as a part of the appointment request. This is not configurable. You will always have these 5 data points. When I click submit, they'll simply receive a success message. You successfully requested an appointment. Someone from the Salvation Army is going to contact you within 2 weeks. If you need to request another appointment for another family member, simply click here and it brings them back to the same page. That person that requested now appears on our intake request. So what'll happen is, it's just because they request an action doesn't mean they actually get to get an appointment. You may come over here and simply cancel the request. Maybe they're not eligible. But in the event that you want to schedule Steve to come in and register for Angel Tree, you'll click this action icon here to the right. This opens up what looks very similar to the distribution appointment. Again, I'll come in here, I'll schedule that appointment. If there is a referring agency, I'll edit here or preferred language. I'll schedule. At this point, Steve got an email. That person comes off the intake requests and goes on to the intake appointments. So here we can see we have 2 appointments scheduled. Obviously, as you go through, this will build out more and more, and you can very easily filter on a specific appointment day and then print that report so that it's available to be handed out as people come to check in. It's a really simple way for them to be able to get confirmation if you use an appointment for them to come in. In rare situations, we have seen people do a hybrid model where they have them fill out the online application and request an appointment because they want to confirm documents in person. You would just do a combination of the two, in which you would be able to go in and do both models. I see some questions coming through, and just like we had on Tuesday, we're going to handle those questions at the very end. I trust my team member Dan. He'll unmute and interrupt me should something be extremely necessary, but usually we're able to cover these questions at the very end. All right, so let's talk about how we process an application. Let's take a quick peek here at this new table that's at the top. One of the requests that we get occasionally is, how do I very easily see a synopsis of how many, where the method of which people came in to apply, as well as their current status? We can set filter settings to be able to see how many are returned to applicant or how many are online, but this gives a very quick and easy way for you to go in and see how many people are in this status. In this case, we know that draft and pending applicants require our activity. Pending means that they have submitted their application and are waiting to be formally submitted, and it's really kind of accepted. So if that's the case, I can simply click this 3 right here, at which point it automatically filters and I can see my 3 applicants that are in a pending state. You will see at the bottom that these numbers change. These numbers here at the bottom reflect the filter statuses above. So if I remove my filter, and if I wanted to change to an intake site for some of those locations that have multiple, and you want to see, just give me the numbers for the Christmas warehouse, I can come in and update that in the filter settings accordingly. So let's dive into an application here. Let's go ahead and look at Rhea Olson here. So Rhea Olson, as I come in here and look, I see a series of accordions. As I come through here, I'm going to process through this application. This step often gets kind of glanced over, right? They come in and check for certain components, but you're going to want to really take a look and see, do we have information that's required? Let's take a look here at the style. This should feel very similar to other TSAMM modules where you have a header information and then a series of accordions. We added this year an expand all button just to allow you to very easily, if I'm reviewing all of these, I don't have to click every single one. I'm just going to expand all, and the system's going to walk through and expand each one of those accordions just so I can slide right down the page reviewing each element. So as I come in, I'm going to review the information. I'm going to look at what they submitted, their address, any specific information that they shared, their household members. In this case, they have no household members, but they're registering 3 kids, Barry, Sierra, and Vladimir. They come down, they don't have an applicant pickup just yet. They sign their consent. And then at the very bottom, I can see my documents. So as I want to review the documents, I can simply click View. In this case, I'm going to review the lease agreement that they submitted. I'll confirm that it's valid, whatever it is that you do to confirm the validity of a lease agreement, and I can go ahead and simply click Confirmed. Checking this box means if you've got multiple people going in to review, it allows you to say, I've already viewed this document, I don't need to do any further. Additionally, perhaps their lease agreement was fine, but their birth certificates were blurry or missing. You can go ahead and return this to the applicant, and when it gets resubmitted, it'll get resubmitted with this confirmation in place, so you don't have to review the same documents over and over. The same way I reviewed the lease agreement, I'll review the birth certificate. I can view that document here, see what information is necessary, and then I can confirm those. These confirmation checkboxes are only for your benefit. They are really only for you. So I can go through and I can process this application independent of me going through and actually checking those additional boxes. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to come back to the top. I'm going to say, okay, this looks good to go. I'm going to go ahead and submit this application. Well, we can't yet because the key thing that's important for every item that is in a submitted status is that it has a distribution appointment. So if I try to submit, I won't be able to do that until I give it a distribution appointment. Another easy way to see if I require a distribution appointment is here where it says schedule applicant pickup. There's an action required here on the right. So just without even having to expand these accordions, I know that this step requires me to schedule when they're going to pick up their gifts. It says no appointment's been scheduled. This and any accordion, if I need to edit the information within it, I click this edit pencil here on the right. Clicking that edit pencil will open up my distribution interface. Now you'll see here on the left, you may recall on Tuesday, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go on too far into this, but in your campaign settings, each of your intake sites can have multiple distribution sites. You can use this to have a food only distribution day. You can do this because of one reason or another. It's really kind of up to you why you would have multiple distribution sites that have different schedules. In this case, I'm going to say I want to schedule them at the warehouse, and I can see how many slots are available. I can see that there's been one person scheduled at 9 and 9:15. As the numbers get lower, you'll see the colors change. So especially for those larger commands, as you're working through, you'll just at a glance, you'll be able to see a color rendering of how many slots are available in that given time slot. In this case, we'll go ahead and click 9, schedule that appointment. And at this point, they've been given their family codes, right? CW2003 in this case. They get those distribution codes the first time when you schedule the appointment. This is because each distribution site has a different distribution code. CW for Christmas warehouse versus SSB for social service building. It's at this point that the family codes are assigned to this family. As I come in, now if I come up to submit, I can go ahead and submit that without any issue. At this point, I'm going to walk through 2 levels of approval as needed. One is the supervisor level, and I'll simply click this button. And I can also admin approve this here. Now I want to pause here because this is a change for this year. Last year we rolled out a change that created a little bit of a wrinkle for a few of you who needed to assign family codes. But we have an issue in which if you assign a family code to someone who's been admin approved, and then for one reason or another, that individual needs to be removed, right? They need to be taken out. They need to be siphoned out. They need to be taken out. The problem is when we delete that application or when we remove that distribution appointment, it had been releasing that family code to be assigned to someone else. The problem is, depending on where that family was in the process, code CW2003 could ultimately end up to 2 different people. And both those individuals would have an email that says, you're approved and here's your family. And it created some confusion. So the way it works this year is that the family code will be released if the applicant hasn't been an admin approved status once, right? So that's a key thing here. If they're only got to supervisor approved or submitted and then they need to get declined or removed, that code will be released and that code will be able to be reused because no email confirmation has gone out to the applicant. If they go into the admin approved state, it's going to lock down this family code. And once I click confirm admin approval, code CW2003 will never be able to be used again. So I'm going to do that here. At this point, the application is now admin approved. And this is when I'm able to go in and I can allocate angels to be adopted. We'll talk a lot about that on Tuesday when we talk about angel processing. But this is the key thing here. This is a big change for this year. I want to make sure we're all on the same page. Just a few other things I'm going to go through at this point. The first of which is those seasonal programs. Some of us wanted to be able to mark if you're interested in a pathway of hope. So especially if I'm doing in-person intake and I'm sitting across from someone, I can ask them. And if they say, yeah, I would love to hear more about that program, I can check that box and then later on run a report on everyone who fell into that seasonal program. Or maybe on the Saturday before Christmas, you always do a community breakfast with Santa and you have 100 slots. and you identify certain families based on certain criteria, and I can go ahead and apply that seasonal program there. Before I leave this page, I want to show a few other kind of cool features that rolled out. One of those is the ability to move applications backwards in a status. We have seen situations in which maybe someone admin approved someone before they should have. When that happens, you now see an edit pencil here in the top right. Clicking on that edit pencil will allow you to update this application into a few different statuses. I can move it back to supervisor approved. When I do that, notice it doesn't remove the family code because the family code is assigned permanently to Rhea Olson. But I've removed my admin approval, and these angels are no longer able to be allocated to an adoption site. They go back into the status of supervisor approved. Now you'll notice if I come to admin approve again, that warning pop-up that we had about locking down the code, we don't see that because this code has already been locked down. It's an unnecessary warning. One other thing while we're on this page before we kind of dive away is another feature that is new for this year that we're really excited about, and that is this communications sent accordion. One question that we get often is, what information has gone out to this applicant? And this is a key feature in our a new module that rolled out. I guess not new anymore. It's been around for 3 years. SA Help is being able to see the communications that went out to this applicant. In this case, I can come into this application, click this right here, and it's going to pull up the exact email that this individual received. This individual received this email. Here it is. Here's your family code. Here's your appointment address. Here's the pickup. All of these components. But it's not just that. If you get contact and you say, listen, I need to get that email again, I can simply come in here and I can resend the email. It's going to get sent to that person a second time as necessary. Now you'll see that the UAT emailer, that's just a construct of this environment that we're in, but this email just got sent a second time. Again, I can come in. Additionally, if I need to update the email address, maybe it got to the very end, and this shouldn't happen with online applicants, but it might happen with in-person applicants. And this is the ability to update who's the recipient. This is a system in our test environment that automatically goes to an internal email. But I can come here and I can update this to a different email address should that be necessary, and then I can resend it to someone else. This is an easy way for me to be able to see all of the communications sent to this applicant. It will go back about 3.5 to 4 months. There are a few locations at this point that have already started doing some angel tree intake. Blessings on you in this summer months. But if you do so, you may start to see some emails fall off, and this is a performance thing as we want to keep this system flying as quickly as we can. But this is an easy way for us to be able to see that communications sent. Let's dive into a few other updates to the system and functionality. While we were on this report, one thing that was difficult last year is if I clicked this red X here, we'll stay with Rhea Olson, and I delete this applicant. They say it's irreversible, but like we want to give a solid like warning, right? So I'll enter in my initials, and I'll go ahead and delete this applicant. When I delete the applicant, that falls off. Rhea Olson is no longer here. And there was really only one way for us to be able to retrieve these emails. It was kind of a pain. So what we've done this year is if we go up to our filter settings, I can go ahead and include deleted applicants. So when I include my deleted applicants, I can now see here, it's all in red, and it gives me the ability to undelete that application. So I can go back into Rhea Olson. We say that this deleted applicant, it's deleted, and it's also read only. It's intended not to be deleted because often this is deleted for a reason. We don't want that to be changed. But you can see what the status was. It's a little shaded here, but it's clear when it's on your device that it's admin approved. And if for some reason Rhea was deleted by mistake, I simply come here and I undelete. It will place the applicant back into the status prior to being deleted. I'll confirm that undeletion. And so now Rhea is back into a full-fledged applicant to be able to be processed. You can see here, it's as if she was never deleted at all. So if you need to undelete an application, they're hidden by default, but you'll go up to filter here and to be able to handle that. The same thing happens if you have online draft applications. As you can imagine, when you start talking about 1,200, 2,000, 5,000, 40,000 kids in the case of DFW, your applicant list can get pretty long. And so what we want to do is we want to clean this up as much as possible with the premise that if it's online draft, you can go ahead and ignore that one for right now. I do want to share one other update here for this screen, and that is you'll see these checkboxes here on the right. In the past, when you wanted to print your warehouse labels, let me scroll to the bottom. If you wanted to print a warehouse label or the sticker labels that we rolled out last year, or just print your applications, you had to apply a filter because it was going to print everything that was on that page. So this year, similar to how we handle angels, I'll just simply select the one that I want to print. And if I want to print just Rhea's application, I select, I go to print. It may take a second to confirm, and then I can go ahead and print just that one application. If I select the box at the top, it'll select all of them within that filter, and I can go ahead and print. Your warehouse and sticker labels function in two ways. Your sticker labels is something that's new for this year. One's a bag label and a bag tag, and what it does is it allows you to print on specific sized like Avery stock or Avery compatible stock. So if I say I want to print a bag tag because you're giving them out and you just want to have a peel and stick as a way to keep those labels, especially as it relates to information that's there, I'll go ahead and I'll print those family bag sticker labels. And so now I've got the codes here. Ignore these codes are blank because they don't have them yet because they don't have a distribution appointment. But as you can see here, I can go ahead and print that straight onto my Avery stock, Avery 5263, or I'm sure there's off brands that maybe are compatible with this as well. But you can go ahead and print those as well. Your warehouse labels, I'm going to go ahead and just to make it a little bit simpler here. So my warehouse labels are exactly what it sounds like. They are full page documents that list out everything about those, the family and their needs and wishes that you can literally put down on the floor in your warehouse to be able to see. You can scan both the family code and the angel code as it walks through. You can use those to help you organize your Christmas angel tree warehouse. There's a few other features that I want to touch on. We've got about 20 minutes left. I've got a few things I want to cover, and then we'll open up to some questions, and I'll circle back. The first of which is being able to have your applicant go in and double check their information about their appointment. So you can see here, if I go to Jeff Johnson here, maybe Jeff reaches out and says, listen, I don't remember my appointment. I can't find my email now. You can go ahead and resend that email if you want. But you can also send a mass email to everyone that says, hey, don't forget, if you need a reminder of your of your appointment, go ahead and go back to saangeltree.org and log on with the same email that you used to register. When I go to register and sign on, it'll send that verification code. I'll type in my code. And here it'll give you that distribution information. I have my barcode, I have the address, I have, so this is my address, I have the address of my distribution, my code, my time, all of these things are right there, ready to go and available for anyone to come back and check. All right, there's just a few other things I want to touch on. That is the other elements underneath this section here. You've got family approvals. So this is the ability for you to do some bulk approval should that be necessary. So as I come in here, you'll see both the family, in this case Leslie Park here, and Leslie's two children, what they asked for, any other notes. And as you can imagine, this list will get further and further out. At the bottom, I have the ability to approve from a supervisor or admin level. This is going to be really helpful, especially for those of you that do in-person intake, right? You do all of your vetting at that point, you give distribution appointment, but then to go and update the statuses to supervisor approved or admin approved, you want to be able to do those in bulk. So I can do those here. The difference here is I'm able to see the makeup of that family. So I come here, I'll select those that are eligible. These aren't selectable because they don't have distribution appointments. They're not in a status or position that allows me to update to either supervisor or admin approved. At this point, I can simply come here, update to supervisor approved, and these individuals have been updated accordingly. Additionally, new this year is an expanded bulk application update. You may know previously, this bulk application update was really restricted for the purposes of um, apologies, for the purposes of submitting or declining. But we got a request this year to be able to do a mass update as it relates to being distributed or delivered. So we just kind of put in one place where we can do mass updates of any status that's eligible. So what I'll need to do first is I'm going to set my filter criteria. So if I'm wanting to update my distribution, it's December 21st, all of your items are distributed and you've elected to not use the distribution management toolkit to help you update this automatically. A little plug for next Thursday. That's what we're going to be covering there. I'm going to come here. I'm going to apply a filter. I simply just want to update my status to be admin approved. It'll truncate my list here. I'll select the box at the top. At this point, it gives me all of the options that I would like to have, including distributed and a new status called not delivered. Essentially, we needed to add a status that indicates that the applicant in question was approved, they were adopted, even potentially fulfilled, but for one reason or another, they never came and picked up their gifts. The gifts were never delivered to the applicant. So in that case, I can come here and say, oh, K never picked up. I can simply update those individuals to be distributed, and that status change will occur, and I can come and I can update to be not delivered should that be necessary. Again, that's just bulk application update, and the key there on that screen is setting your filter according to the action you're going to want to take. If you're going to want to mark as distributed, you need to filter against those that are in a status of admin approved. All right, just a few other things here. As I want to talk briefly about invitation codes. You heard me talk about invitation codes at the beginning, and this is often used to bypass restrictions. If we say we only allow 200 applicants, and then we've hit that list of 200 applicants, you will get locked out regardless. But maybe you have an arrangement with a local elementary school. Maybe you have an arrangement with a local home in which they are given 10 slots to be able to register kids for Angel Tree. And though we don't want to restrict those individuals. Additionally, this is how you can allow people to bypass a zip code restrictions. On rare occasions, we've seen instances in which individuals would like to allow, maybe there's a core member's family or an employee member's family that's going to be in town, or they're from outside your service area, but you want to be able to fulfill those angels. You can do that with invitation codes. To create those codes, you simply click Generate Codes. I can choose to create individual codes. That's what you see here, where there's one code that's unique and is only able to be used once. If I choose to generate a group code, it will create one code that can be shared that many times for a group. So if you have a home, a children's home or a nursing home that you want to allow to give a group, and it's just kind of a first come, first serve, and they've got 15 slots, you can create one code. Once that code gets used 15 times, it won't be able to be used again. So I'll create an invitation code. I'll say I want to create 10 codes. I'll select my intake site, in this case, the Christmas warehouse. I have the option to enforce zip code restrictions, but in this case, I'm going to say no, I don't want to enforce those restrictions. I go ahead and generate those requests. At this point, I can simply go ahead and export those. I can deliver. This is your invitation code here on the left. That's what gets delivered to the applicant in question for them to be able to register for Angel Tree. This is a really key thing. Again, it gets used if you want to allow individuals to bypass the system or to be able to restrict invitation codes to a specific intake site for one reason or another. We've seen this often with elementary schools. Maybe you're going to do a specific distribution out of an elementary school, so you need those individuals to sign up at that one intake site so you can align those together. There's lots of ways to be able to accomplish things. So it's often if you find difficult items or elements in your process that we can go ahead and help to solve, send us a note on support@tsam.org and we'll be able to answer some questions. You may notice if you're from the West or the Central, I have not talked at all about WellSky integration. This is the integration with the community services system WellSky. And so we're going to talk all about that on our in a couple of weeks from now. I think that's our last webinar of the season where we focus only on WellSky integration. And that's why here this is this Southern Territory, which doesn't have that integration in place. Lots of things here to be able to dive into. Well, we're coming to the end of our webinar, but I'm seeing a good number of questions. So I'm going to hop on here and be able to start to answer these questions. The first one here is from Shan Johnson. Have been able to come up with a way to catch duplicate people who register using different email addresses. That is 100% correct. We're going to dive into that a little bit with new features that rolled out last year, but we've done some refinement. So we're going to talk more about that at our new features webinar. And that's going to be able to come in here and go under angels, because really we're talking about angel duplicates as opposed to applicant duplicates. So I'm going to come in here to angel duplicates at the bottom. And when I come here, I set certain criteria. So think of this as a teaser for both this next webinar as well as our new feature. And I'm going to determine how broad do I want to search, right? Some of us only care about our local organization. Some of us want to look across the entire division. Some of us might want to look across the entire territory, or maybe just neighboring locations, right? We are here in the DFW area, and maybe they might say, well, let me just include Sherman, Texas. Sherman's close enough to where we might see people trying to skirt the system. But when you're done, you're going to both also select the, the comparison criteria. I highly suggest you use this top option, but if you want to look at others, you can select the appropriate comparison. This is comparing angels, not applicants. Okay, let me say that one more time. It's comparing angels, not applicant. I'm going to go ahead and select all of the above. If I click continue, it's going to run a report. There are none in this case. We will have these built out to be able to show you in the future. Let me see if I have any that are just a little bit more refined. See if I can get one to pull up. No, we're going to go more into this on Tuesday. Just give me a little teaser. But this is where you're going to be able to see exactly. North Texas used this to be able to find 400 different angels that were duplicates. It still requires some assessment, right? It's not anything that's automatic, because just because John Smith, born on January 1st, 2012, has a common name doesn't mean they're automatically a duplicate. And so it uses some assessment, but you can go in and automatically decline, and it also marks those as angel duplicates. Let me go ahead here as I continue up and answer the questions here. Oh, apologies. How does an applicant get notified if they do not qualify for Angel Tree? So one of the options you have in the system is to decline an applicant. Now you can decline an applicant at many stages. They can be admin approved and still be declined. So let's take Jay Homerman here. Jay, for one reason or another, isn't qualified. Maybe that's a financial purposes. Maybe you have in place a system that says you can only get Angel Tree 3 times in a row, and after that you have to take a break. I've seen some locations that say you can sign up for Angel Tree, but if this is your second time, you had to have taken a life skills class in the past year with our at the core to be able to register. If that case, I simply go ahead and click decline, and I'll type in my decline reason. Why are they being declined? You are not eligible until next year. You've received gifts 3 years in a row, right? You can go ahead and enter this information. I'll confirm that decline, and that individual is going to receive a notice that says, hey, you're declined. Additionally, you'll be able to see confirmation here. I can show you exactly what that individual would have seen. They would have seen this, and they've been told they do not register. That decline message is something that is internal for you to be able to come back and reference. But it comes in here and it lists here exactly what's there. You're not eligible until next year, but you would want to make sure you confirm that. I can't type and speak at the same time. If you've been on a webinar, you know that's my Achilles heel. It'll communicate there and be able to exactly tell them why it was that they weren't eligible for Angel Tree this year if they got declined. There is no automatic declining. And that is intentional. We can go more into the philosophy around that, but we don't want to restrict you. We don't want to give you a system that says if you make more than X, you're automatically declined, because there are certain circumstances that life has made this person eligible, and so we want to handle that. A question from Wendy in the Central is, how does the information regarding Pathway of Hope interest get conveyed to the Pathway of Hope case managers? That's really a business rule. It's kind of up to you. You can give your Pathway of Hope case managers access to the system in which they can run the report. But what most often happens is individuals that generate that answer this question, interested in Pathway of Hope, they would come in, they would be able to run a report on those individuals and hand that in paper form or an email to their Pathway of Hope case manager. There is no automatic delivery of someone being interested in Pathway of Hope. In fact, I'm having a meeting in the Central where they want to add a question about asking, have you been a part of Pathway of Hope in years past? Again, this is information. What you do with this information is kind of up to you. We talked on Tuesday about adding seasonal programs that talk about other core programs that they might be interested in, especially if you're doing in-person intake. Are you interested in an after-school program? Are you interested in a weekly free music program for the kids? Are you interested in hearing more about summer camp when we start registration in March? You can add all these different questions that then generate reports, gives you information, and then you can use the mass communication tool, which we'll talk about in the new features section, because there's new features of the communications tool. Little teasers to get you to come back and hang out with me in a few weeks. We'll be able to go ahead and communicate with them, let them know information. Maybe there's a web page they can go to sign up for additional information. All of this information here. All right, we've got a few questions here. From Heather, we had issues with people not having access to their email or no email address. What is the best way to bypass the email to sign people up? What typically I would say is we instruct those individuals that either don't have access to their email or don't have an email address. Those are kind of two reasons, right? They don't have access. Is that because it's an old email address and they simply don't have one? If so, we would encourage them to get a new email address. They're free. They can get those to be able to stay up to date with their information. A lot of the system is built kind of on some of this ability to be able to deliver communications to them. If they don't have an email address and don't have the means or the knowledge to get one, I would instruct them to come and sign up in person. There's nothing in the system that dictates I have to take online intake or in-person intake. I can do all online intake, and if someone walks in off the street, I can create the intake right there. This option here to create a new applicant will always be present, regardless of how you wish to proceed. You may never utilize it, but it's always going to be there. A Question from Johnson. After the initial distribution email gets sent after approval, is there a way to resend that to them, or should we just tell them to go into their application online? I might have missed that in the sent communication sections. So we can, yes, Johnson, you did miss it, but I'm really excited about this feature this year. So I'm going to go back to one that's approved. And if you want to resend that communication, let me come here to K. I go down to communication sent. I can just simply resend that communication. Okay, I'll give you guys a little teaser. I'm going to give away all of my new features in my Send Communications tab. But we're going to go ahead and give you a little one here. Is that when I send my communications to my applicants, let's say I want to do the Christmas warehouse. When I'm sending this information, let me get to that step here. I'm moving really quickly. I'm able to go through and I'm going to be able, oh, forgive me, I've got to fill out all of this information here. Okay. I'm going to be able to send this information, and this will be able to include their distribution appointment as a part of the message that goes out. If it's present, I can go ahead and include that distribution appointment. So I can send a reminder, and in that will include when they're supposed to come, as well as any other individuals. Answer from Zachary. Can you decline for individual angels in a household, but not all? Yes, but I wouldn't call it decline. You can go in and remove angels. So let's say you've opened up your angel age to be able to accommodate older angels that maybe have special needs. And so you're only handling 12, but you can be up to 18 if you meet certain criteria. I can come into this one here that we requested. Let me go to Leslie here, because Leslie has 2 angels. I can go to the angel information here. I click this edit pencil, at which point I can remove the angel, but it's not a decline in a similar sense. I'm going to say Amaya, for whatever reason, is not eligible to receive angels. I'm deleting that angel, but I'm not declining the angel. Hopefully that there's a little bit of a nuance change there, but I can go ahead and remove that angel as I continue processing through the application. Let me see if there's any other questions here. It doesn't appear to be. Let me see here. I think there's some other questions coming in. I'll start to work through some of these. We're coming right up to the end. Just a quick teaser here at the very end for some coming up webinars. Next Tuesday, we are going to be looking at angel processing. How do I create a sponsored angel allocation? How do I allocate angels to those locations based on various criteria? What happens if I have what happens if I handle or I have a location that is a Girl Scout troop and they only want to adopt angels that fall into a certain category? We can show you how to do that on Tuesday. And then we talk about distribution management, which is one of my favorite things, and we're slowly getting people embracing that. So please come and join me next Thursday for the distribution management, as well as new features, and then a specific one devoted to WellSky integration. All right, a question here, a few questions here. We're coming right to the end, so I know many people have things to do, but I'll keep answering the questions as they come in. Lily asked, how do we generate reports of participants who received gifts in previous years? That can be found under admin reports. When I come into admin reports, if I go to, there's a few different ones here. Applicant reports here. In this drop down, I can open up those previous campaigns. If I want to look at specifically at the 2020 archive, I can generate that report, which brings me right back to all those individuals that received gifts in 2020. Same thing with donors. There's a lot of information that's here. I do want to highlight these at the bottom, these multi-campaign reports. So let's say I want to have a report here, and I want to grab their first name, the last name, and the referring agency, maybe their family size, their email address, phone number, and their total income. We want to answer all these questions and export it out. I can generate that report. These reports at the bottom will automatically go into an Excel format. These reports at the top will open a report that allows me to filter and do things like I would in a normal applicant records report. All right, a few more questions. Alma asks, if I do paper application, do I enter this in TSAMM? The only way you're going to be able to utilize the system is the data has to get in there, right? The data has to get in there. So whether that is you taking a paper application and then typing it in, or if that is you having the applicant fill it in or sitting across from them, but ultimately the net effect is it has to get in the system. The one benefit is you might take a paper application and then only add the bare minimum amount of information for you to be able to use the Angel allocation feature and the distribution feature. So maybe you don't capture their address or any of that financial information because that's all on the paper form, and you just need to have their name, gender, and just those required fields that are in place. So the data has to get in there, but there's nothing that says all of the information has to be in the system. Kimmy asks the question, does the system still send a reminder to pick up successful applicants 24 hours prior to their appointment automatically? Absolutely. We want to try to mitigate people forgetting as much as possible. So whether you want it or not, your applicants will receive a notification 24 hours prior that says, just a reminder, your distribution appointment is tomorrow at 10:30. Here's the information. Here's the instructions you supplied. It's going to send there. None of that got removed. We are adding in additional functionality. There's a question from Linda that says, will the application be required for all territories, or can we still do in-person paper applications? At this point, I don't know if there's anything that's mandated. It gets used in varying degrees. I will tell you that this past year we had roughly 800 campaigns across the United States that processed almost 1 million angels, and so it gets used fairly extensively. We're still coming up to speed on the Eastern Territory, which is where you're from, Linda, and so I'm not sure why I had to clarify that for you, but we'll be able to dive in. If you have some questions about how this can work in your area, we find this is an immense time saver for individuals as they go through and they're processing their system. All right. Let me go through and see if there's any other questions here that doesn't look, I think I've answered every, by all means. Dan, unmute if you need to say, hey, don't forget about someone's questions, but we are a little bit over time. I did better this time than last time, but thank you guys very much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing all the things that you do in the system. Our webinar from Tuesday will be posted on our YouTube channel by the end of tomorrow, and then be able to process these through. Hit us up with questions if you have them. Send it in support. There's also FAQs here under resources. You can go in and see answer a lot of questions about Angel Tree, things that we're talking about here. If there's additional questions that have come out, maybe I missed something that you were looking for, by all means, hit us up if there's any confusion about how you can handle this year. Let us know. Have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you use the system.